Death Star 1, the original moon-sized menace, the granddaddy of all planet killers. The DS-1 orbital battle station, or as we lovingly call it, the Death Star, was the Empire's first attempt at weaponizing an entire moon. This 160-kilometer diameter technological terror took over 20 years to construct, starting way back during the Clone Wars when the Geonosians first drafted the plans. Talk about a long-term investment in galactic domination. Powered by massive kyber crystals, the same stuff that makes lightsabers go vroom, the Death Star's super laser could obliterate an entire planet with a single shot. The station housed 1.7 million military personnel, 400,000 maintenance droids, and 250,000 civilians. That's basically a floating city of doom, with its own Starbucks equivalent, probably called Deathbucks. The super laser itself required 8 tributary laser stations, focusing their energy into a central lens, creating the distinctive green beam of planetary annihilation. The Empire's biggest mistake? That pesky thermal exhaust port. Originally designed as a necessary heat dispersion system, it became the station's Achilles heel when farm boy Luke Skywalker bullseyed it like a womp rat. Director Krennic probably should have invested in some grating or maybe a simple no proton torpedoes sign. The port was only 2 meters wide, roughly the size of a womp rat coincidentally, and ran directly to the main reactor, creating a straight shot to the station's heart. What made the Death Star truly terrifying wasn't just its planet-destroying capabilities, it was the philosophy behind it. The Tarkin doctrine believed that fear of force, rather than force itself, would keep systems in line. Spoiler alert, it didn't work. The station met its explosive end at the Battle of Yavin, taking Grand Moff Tarkin and his perfectly pressed uniform with it. Unlike its successors, this Death Star actually got to destroy a planet, RIP Alderaan, making it technically the most successful of all the variants we'll discuss. The station also carried thousands of TIE fighters and was defended by numerous turbo lasers, ion cannons, and tractor beam projectors, making it a fortress as much as a weapon. Death Star 2, bigger, badder, and still explodable. If at first you don't succeed, build another one, but make it even larger. The Death Star 2 measured the same 160 kilometers in diameter as its predecessor, though some sources suggest it was significantly larger. The Empire learned from their exhaust port fiasco and incorporated millions of millimeter-sized heat dispersion tubes instead of one giant shoot-here-to-win port. Built in secret over the forest moon of Endor, this Death Star came with significant upgrades. The super laser could fire more frequently and target capital ships, not just planets. Think of it as Death Star 1.0 versus Death Star Pro Max. Same genocidal energy, but with faster refresh rates and better targeting options. The improved targeting systems allowed it to pick off individual Mon Calamari cruisers during the Battle of Endor, demonstrating precision the original Death Star could only dream of. The real genius, or madness, of Death Star 2 was Emperor Palpatine's trap. He deliberately leaked intel about the station's incomplete status to lure the Rebel Alliance into a final confrontation. Plot twist: the super laser was fully operational. Cue Admiral Akbar's immortal words about traps. The Emperor even positioned his best legion of troops on Endor's moon, anticipating the Rebel ground assault. The station's destruction came not from a design flaw, but from the Rebels successfully taking down the shield generator on Endor. Lando Calrissian and Wedge Antilles then flew into the superstructure and destroyed the main reactor. The lesson here: never underestimate teddy bears with pointy sticks. The Death Star 2's demise marked the beginning of the Empire's end and proved that maybe, just maybe, building moon-sized targets isn't the best military strategy. But did future villains learn this lesson? Absolutely not. The station's incomplete state actually worked against it. The exposed superstructure allowed the rebels to fly directly to the reactor core, turning the Empire's trap into their own tomb. Starkiller Base. When moons just aren't big enough. 30 years after the Empire's fall, the First Order looked at the Death Star plans and said, you know what? Let's go bigger. Let's weaponize an entire planet. Starkiller Base was built into the ice planet Ilum, transforming a world rich in kyber crystals into a superweapon that dwarfed both Death Stars. The planet's history as a sacred Jedi site where younglings found their lightsaber crystals adds an extra layer of twisted irony to its corruption. This beast could destroy entire star systems from across the galaxy by firing through hyperspace. While the Death Stars needed to get relatively close to their targets, Starkiller Base could sit comfortably in the unknown regions and obliterate the Hosnian system without breaking a sweat. It worked by draining entire stars for power, literally consuming suns to fuel its planet-killing beam. The weapon utilized dark energy and exotic matter to tear holes through sub-hyperspace, allowing its phantom energy beam to travel faster than light. With a diameter of 660 kilometers, Starkiller Base was roughly 5.5 times larger than either Death Star. The First Order even included a courtesy feature. The weapon's beam was specifically designed to be visible across the galaxy, because nothing says "surrender now" like watching multiple planets explode from your home world. General Hux's speech before firing perfectly embodied the First Order's theatrical approach to terror. Its destruction came courtesy of the Resistance exploiting a weak point. Sensing a pattern here, Poe Dameron's X-Wing squadron targeted a thermal oscillator, causing the planet to implode and transform into a star. At least Starkiller Base went out with style, becoming the very thing it consumed. The irony is that unlike the Death Stars, which took decades to build, evidence suggests Starkiller Base's construction began during the Empire era, making it a multi-generational project. Talk about commitment to the bit. The hollowing out of Ilum reportedly began shortly after the Empire rose to power, meaning this superweapon was literally decades in the making. Death Star Prototype, the beta test of doom. Before you build the real deal, you need a test model. Hidden away in the Maw installation, the Death Star prototype was essentially a bare-bones version, just a Durasteel frame with a reactor core, super laser, engines, and control sector. No fancy amenities, no officer's mess, just pure planet-destroying functionality. The skeletal structure actually made it appear more menacing in some ways, like seeing the mechanical skeleton of a terrifying beast. Measuring 120 kilometers in diameter, this prototype could only destroy a planet's core rather than obliterate it entirely. Think of it as Death Star Light, all the genocide, half the calories. Built by Bevel Lemelisk and his team under Grand Moff Tarkin's supervision, it served as proof that the concept could work. The Maw installation itself was the perfect hiding spot, surrounded by black holes that made navigation nearly impossible without precise calculations. The prototype sat gathering space dust in the Maw until Han Solo, Chewbacca, and Kip Duran stumbled upon it during their escape from the secret facility. In true Solo fashion, they turned a routine prison break into a battle involving superweapons. The prototype eventually met its end when Kip Duran, wielding the Suncrusher, more on that later, lured it into one of the Maw's black holes. The station's crew, led by Director Tol Sivron, proved surprisingly incompetent for people operating a planet killer. What makes the prototype fascinating is that it proves the Empire's dedication to the scientific method. They didn't just build a moon-sized weapon and hope for the best, they tested it first. Granted, leaving your prototype lying around for escaped prisoners to find wasn't the smartest move. The prototype also demonstrated that even a stripped-down Death Star was incredibly dangerous, capable of destroying moons and severely damaging planets. It's like finding out the rough draft of your enemy's doomsday device is still a doomsday device. The prototype actually saw combat against both Kessel and New Republic forces, proving that even a practiced Death Star could be a formidable weapon. Like this deep dive into Star Wars superweapons? Smash that subscribe button like a Death Star smashes planets. Drop your favorite Death Star variant in the comments below. Death Star 3, the obscure one nobody talks about. Deep in the pages of the children's book, Mission from Mount Yoda, lies a reference to Death Star 3, making it possibly the most obscure variant in Star Wars lore. While the book focuses on the adventures following Return of the Jedi, with storylines involving Trioculus and the prophets of the dark side, concrete details about this third Death Star remain frustratingly elusive. The book was part of the Jedi Prince series, published in the early 1990s for young readers, and took significant creative liberties with the Star Wars universe. What we do know is that this Death Star appears in a series that wasn't exactly known for its adherence to what would later become accepted canon. The Jedi Prince series, of which Mission from Mount Yoda is the fourth installment, featured wild storylines including fake sons of Palpatine, three-eyed mutants, and Ken, a young Jedi prince living in the lost city of the Jedi. In this context, Death Star 3 seems almost mundane by comparison. The series also included Mount Yoda on Dagobah as a rebel base, showing just how far it strayed from established lore. The lack of detailed information about Death Star 3 speaks volumes about its impact on Star Wars lore. Unlike its predecessors, or even the more exotic variants like the Suncrusher, this Death Star never captured fans' imaginations. It exists in that weird space of technically it was mentioned without ever being properly explored or explained. Was it another moon-sized station, a new design, a recycled Death Star eye with a fresh coat of paint? Even dedicated Star Wars encyclopedias often skip over this particular variant. Given that even in the expansive Legends continuity, Death Star 3 barely gets a mention, it's safe to say this is the variant that even the Empire's marketing department would struggle to sell. It's the superweapon equivalent of that direct-to-video sequel nobody asked for. While other variants at least got dramatic destruction scenes or memorable battles, Death Star 3 remains forever frozen in obscurity, a footnote in a children's book series that most fans have forgotten, sometimes even in a galaxy far, far away. Not every superweapon gets its moment to shine. The mere fact that it exists in such an obscure corner of Star Wars media makes it a fascinating curiosity for completists and lore enthusiasts. Darksaber, the Hutt's bargain bin Death Star. What happens when criminal slugs try to build a superweapon on a budget? You get the Darksaber, Durga the Hutt's attempt to recreate Death Star technology. Working with Bevel Lemelisk, yes, the same guy who designed the original Death Star, Durga created what was essentially just the super laser portion in a cylindrical casing. The project was conceived after Durga stole the Death Star plans during a diplomatic visit to Coruscant, proving that even crime lords dream of planet-killing weapons. Picture a lightsaber hilt the size of a space station, and you've got the basic idea. The Darksaber stripped away all the unnecessary bits like shields, proper armor, and structural integrity. It was the superweapon equivalent of buying designer knockoffs. Looks similar from a distance, but falls apart under scrutiny. The cylindrical design was meant to be more efficient, focusing all resources on the super laser rather than maintaining a moon-sized sphere. The Hutts funded this death machine through criminal enterprises because apparently even galaxy-threatening weapons need venture capital. The construction was plagued with problems, mainly because Durga hired the cheapest contractors in the galaxy. Pro tip: when building a device capable of destroying stars, maybe don't go with the lowest bidder. The workforce consisted largely of incompetent laborers and cut-rate materials, leading to constant mechanical failures and delays. The Darksaber's career was shorter than a stormtrooper's life expectancy. When cornered by New Republic forces, it attempted to fire its super laser but failed spectacularly. The weapon was ultimately destroyed by 2 asteroids in the Hutt asteroid field, proving that sometimes the universe has a sense of poetic justice. Unlike the Death Stars, which at least required concentrated military efforts to destroy, the Darksaber was taken out by space rocks. It remains the only Death Star variant to be defeated by natural phenomena, cementing its place as the most embarrassing entry in the superweapon hall of shame. Lemelisk himself met his end aboard the doomed station, finally paying for his role in creating these instruments of destruction. The Darksaber serves as a cautionary tale about what happens when you try to build doomsday weapons on the cheap. Suncrusher, the overachiever's superweapon. While everyone else was thinking big, someone at the Moore installation decided to think small but deadly. The Suncrusher was a starfighter-sized craft capable of destroying entire star systems by triggering stars to go supernova. It's like comparing a nuclear submarine to an aircraft carrier. Smaller, stealthier, but arguably more dangerous. Developed by scientist Kui Shu and her team, this weapon represented the pinnacle of miniaturized destruction technology. Wrapped in nearly indestructible quantum crystalline armor, the Suncrusher could ram straight through star destroyers without taking damage. In fact, Han Solo once piloted it directly through the bridge of the Imperial Star Destroyer Hydra, treating capital ships like space speed bumps. The Death Stars needed massive crews and took forever to recharge. The Suncrusher needed one pilot and could destroy multiple systems in succession. The armor was so resilient it could even withstand the crushing pressures at the core of a gas giant, making it practically invulnerable to conventional weapons. The weapon worked by firing resonance torpedoes into a star's core, creating a chain reaction that forced even small stars to go supernova. Within hours, the resulting explosion would obliterate every planet in the system. No need for precise targeting or getting close to your victim. Just shoot the sun and let physics do the rest. Each torpedo contained dense packets of energy that would destabilize stellar cores, turning the very source of a system's life into its destruction. The Suncrusher's story is inseparable from Kip Duron, who stole it during a particularly dark period and used it to destroy the Imperial training world of Carida, killing millions. Eventually, the superweapon was dropped into the gas giant Yavin, but even atmospheric pressures that would crush any normal vessel couldn't destroy it. It took being lured into a black hole to finally end the Suncrusher's threat. Where Death Stars were blunt instruments of terror, the Suncrusher was a surgical tool of annihilation, proof that in the superweapon arms race, sometimes less is more. The psychological impact of knowing a single fighter could end your entire star system arguably made it more terrifying than any Death Star ever built. World Devastators, the all-you-can-eat buffet of doom. Why destroy planets when you can eat them and build a fleet at the same time? The World Devastators were the brainchild of Umakleth, for Emperor Palpatine's reborn clone, representing perhaps the most practical approach to super weapons. These mechanical monstrosities didn't just destroy, they recycled. Using powerful tractor beams, World Devastators would literally consume planetary surfaces, breaking down matter in molecular furnaces and using it to construct new war machines. They could build anything from fighters to medium cruisers, while simultaneously growing larger and more powerful. Imagine a combination of the Death Star's destructive capability with a self-replicating factory. That's a World Devastator. Unlike the Death Stars, which merely destroyed worlds, World Devastators turned target planets into resources for the Empire. They could even build more World Devastators, making them potentially the most dangerous variant of all. Give one enough time and resources, and you'd have an exponentially growing fleet of planet eaters spreading across the galaxy like mechanical locusts. The machines made their debut attacking Mon Calamari, where they proved devastatingly effective until R2-D2 uploaded a computer virus that shut them down. The New Republic actually captured one and tried to repurpose it for recycling derelict spacecraft, though public outcry eventually led to it being scrapped. While not as immediately dramatic as a planet-exploding laser, World Devastators represented a more insidious threat: the slow consumption of entire worlds while building the means to consume more. They're proof that sometimes the most terrifying weapons are the ones that turn your home into ammunition against your neighbors. That's every Death Star variant explained. Which one keeps you up at night? Subscribe for more Star Wars deep dives, and remember, the ability to destroy a planet is insignificant next to the power of that notification bell.